grade class performing 100 Hungry Ants by Eleanor Pinces. A whole hill of hungry ants, their faces all aglow, came swarming from the forest to cross the field below. A soft breeze fanned the sunshine and whisked them on their way. It hinted of yummies for their empty tummies. That means a picnic! Hooray! 100 ants were singing and marching in a row. We're going on a picnic, a hay and a honey. We're going on a picnic, a hay and a honey. Stop, said the littlest ant. We're moving way too slow. Some food will be long gone unless we hurry up. So, with 2 lines of 50, we'd get there soon, I know. All the ants raced here and there, up, down, and to and fro. There'll be lots of yummies for our hungry tummies, a hay and a hidey-ho. 100 ants were singing and marching in 2 rows of 50. We're going on a picnic, a hay and a hidey-ho. We're going on a picnic, a hay and a hidey-ho. The littlest ant, we're moving way too slow. More of the food will be gone unless we hurry up. So with 4 lines of 25, we'd get there soon, I know. All the ants raced here and there, up, down, and to and fro. We hope there's yummies for our rumbling tummies, a hay and a hidey-ho. 100 ants were singing and marching in 4 rows of 25. We're going on a picnic, a hay and a hidey-ho. We're going on a picnic, a hay and a hidey-ho. Stop! Screamed the littlest ant. We're moving way too slow. Lots of food will be long gone unless we hurry up. So with 5 lines of 20, we'd get there soon, I know. All the ants raced here and there, up, down, and to and fro. There might be a yummy for a gurgling tummy, a hay and a hidey-ho. 100 ants were singing and marching in 5 rows of 20. We're going on a picnic, a hay and a hidey-ho. We're going on a picnic, a hay and a hidey-ho. Stop! Shrieked the littlest ant. We're moving way too slow. All the food will be long gone unless we hurry up. So with 10 lines of 10, we'd get there soon, I know. All the ants raced here and there, up, down, and to and fro. There better be yummies for our grumbling tummies, a hay and a hidey-ho. 100 ants were singing and marching in 10 rows of 10. At last they're at the picnic. At last we're at the picnic, a hay and a hidey-ho. At last we're at the picnic, a hay and a hidey-ho. Stop! Yipped the littlest ant. We've traveled way too slow. There's no food for us to eat. You took so long with the rows. All the ants raced here and there, up, down, and to and fro. There aren't any yummies for our growling tummies, a hay and a hidey-ho. Oh no! 99 ants were swarming from each and every row in hot pursuit of one little ant, who quickly turned to go. It's not my fault, you know. We're going on a picnic, a hay and a hidey-ho. We're going on a picnic, a hay and a hidey-ho. This is Miss
Sally's third grade class performing Time for Bed by Mem Fox. It's time for bed, little mouse, little mouse. Darkness is falling all over the house. It's time for bed, little goose, little goose. The stars are out and on the loose. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. It's time for bed, little cat, so snuggle and tight. That's right, my cat. It's time for bed, little cat. What happened today that made you laugh? The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. It's time for bed, little fool, little fool. I'll whisper a secret, but don't tell a soul. It's time for bed, little fish, so hold your breath and make a wish. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. It's time for bed, little sheep, little sheep. The whole wide world is going to sleep. It's time to sleep, little bird, so close your eyes, not another word. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. It's time to sleep, little bee, little bee. Yes, I love you and you love me. It's time to sleep, little snake, little snake. Good gracious me, you're still awake? The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. It's time to sleep, little pup, little pup. If you don't sleep soon, the sun will be up. It's time to sleep, little dear, little dear. The very last kiss is almost here. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling, sleep well, good night. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling. Sleep well. Good night. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling. Sleep well. Good night. The stars on high are shining bright. Sweet dreams, my darling. Sleep well. Good night. This is Mrs. Sarley's third grade class performing The Aliens Are Coming by Colin McNaughton. A fleet of spaceships heads this way. They're 50 zillion miles away, but getting closer every day. The aliens are coming. They're zooming in from outer space to conquer us, the human race. We'll soon be standing face to face.
coming. The first mate looks like wobbly jelly. He's sort of gaseous and he's smelly. He has an eyeball on his belly. The aliens are coming. Tell the people far and wide, all across the countryside. Tell them quickly get inside. The aliens are coming. These beings come in different sizes. This one's doing exercises. Get ready, Earth, for some surprises. The aliens are coming. Some have one head, some have two. There's even one with none. It's true. What on earth are we to do? The aliens are coming. Tell the people far and wide, all across the countryside. Tell them quickly get inside. Aliens are coming. They come from planets near and far, some big, some small, some quite bizarre. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, the aliens are coming. Tell the people far and wide, all across the countryside. Tell them quickly get inside, aliens are coming. I really hate to make a fuss. Perhaps you thought they look like us, but most of them appear thus. The aliens are coming. This one squeaks and that one squawks. Some have eyeballs stuck on stalks. This one squelches when it walks. The aliens are coming. Tell the people far and wide, all across the countryside. Tell them quickly get inside. Aliens are coming. See the aliens at lunch? Slobber, dribble, gobble, munch. Table manners? Not this bunch. The aliens are coming. Tell the people far and wide, all across the countryside. Tell them quickly get inside. Aliens are coming. Some are bald and some are hairy. Some are round, some are squarey. Some look friendly, but beware, the aliens are coming. They've boldly been where we've not been. They're blue and purple, sickly green. At home, this one's a beauty queen. The aliens are coming. Tell the people far and wide, all across the countryside. Tell them quickly get inside. Aliens are coming. None speak English, French, or Greek. They sort of grunt and burp and squeak. The chance of peace talks, I'd say bleak. The aliens are coming. Tell the people far and wide, all across the countryside. Tell them quickly get inside. Aliens are coming. This one biffs and that one bops. This one nips and that one chops. Someone better call the cops. The aliens are coming. Some are tall and some are squat. Some are cool and some are hot. Some are nice, but most are not. The aliens are coming. Tell the people far and wide, all across the countryside. Tell them quickly get inside. Aliens are coming. At last, the earth comes into view. The admiral knows what to do. He orders battle stations, crew. The aliens are coming. But, looking through his telescope, suddenly he lost all hope. He knew his army couldn't cope. The aliens are slowing. The admiral jumped and cried, "Change of orders, run and hide." The aliens were terrified. The aliens are going? For this is what the aliens saw.
Peekaboo, it's you. What's more, you've scared them off. Away they roar. The aliens are going. Tell the people far and wide, all across the countryside. Tell them quickly inside, aliens are going. Of life in every galaxy, the scariest thing is you. Yippee! You've saved the world. Just look and see. The aliens are gone. Hooray! The aliens are gone. Tell the people far and wide, all across the countryside. Tell them quickly get outside. Aliens are going. This is Mrs. Ark's 4th grade class performing The Napping House by Audrey Wood. There is a house, a napping house, where everyone is sleeping. And in that house, there is a bed, a cozy bed, in a napping house where everyone is sleeping. And on that bed, there is a granny, a snoring granny, on a cozy bed, in a napping house where everyone is sleeping. And on that granny, there is a child, a dreaming child, on a snoring granny, on a cozy bed, in a napping house where everyone is sleeping. And on that child, there is a dog, a dozing dog, on a dreaming child, on a snoring granny, on a cozy bed, in a napping house where everyone is sleeping. And on that dog, there is a cat, a snoozing cat, on a dozing dog, on a dreaming child, on a snoring granny, on a cozy bed, in a napping house where everyone is sleeping. And on that cat, there is a mouse, a slumbering mouse, on a snoozing cat, on a dozing dog, on a dreaming child, on a snoring granny, on a cozy bed, in a napping house where everyone is sleeping. And on that mouse, there is a flea. Can it be a wakeful flea? On a slumbering mouse, on a snoozing cat, on a dozing dog, on a dreaming child, on a snoring granny, on a cozy bed, in a napping house where everyone is sleeping.
Who scares that cat? Who claws the dog? Who thumps the child? Who bumps the granny? Who breaks the bed? In a napping house where no one is now sleeping. This is Mr. Munkin's 4th grade class performing Follow the Drinking Gourd. Story and pictures by Jeanette Winter. Long ago, before the Civil War, there was an old sailor called Peg-Leg Joe who did what he could to help free the slaves. Joe had a plan. He'd use hammer and nail and saw and work for the master, the man who owned the slaves on the cotton plantations. Joe had a plan. At night when work was done, he'd teach the slaves a song that secretly told them the way to freedom. Just follow the drinking gourd, it said. When the song was learned and sung all day, Peg-Leg Joe would slip away to work for another master and teach the song again. One day, a slave called Molly saw her man James sold to another master. James would be taken away, their family torn apart, just one more night together. A quail called in the trees that night. Molly and James remembered Joe's song. They sang it low. Molly and James set out for freedom that very night, following the stars of the drinking gourd. They ran all night through the fields till they crossed the stream to the woods. When daylight came, they hid in the trees, watching, listening for the master's hounds, set loose to find them. But the dogs lost the runaway scent at the stream, and Molly and James and Isaiah and old Hattie and young George were not found. They hid in the woods all day. At night, they walked again, singing Joe's song and looking for the signs that marked the trail. Walking by night, sleeping by day, for weeks they traveled on, sometimes berries to pick and corn to snatch, sometimes fish to catch, sometimes empty bellies to sleep on, sometimes no stars to guide their way. They never knew what lay ahead. There was danger from men who would send them back, and danger from hungry beasts, but sometimes a kind deed was done. One day, as they hid in a thicket, a boy from a farm found them,
and a bag of feed for the hogs in the woods. He brought bacon and cornbread to share. Singing low, they traveled on. To the river's end. From the top of the hill where they saw the new path, another river beneath the stars to lead them to freedom land. The drinking gourd led them on. The song was almost done. Down below was Peg-Leg Joe, waiting at the wide Ohio River to carry them across. Their spirits rose when they saw the old man. Molly and James and Isaiah, old Hattie and George ran to the shore. Under a starry sky, Joe rowed them along the wide Ohio River. He told them of hiding places where they would be safe. A path of houses stretched like a train on a secret track leading to north to Canada. He called it the Underground Railroad. It carried them to freedom. The first safe house stood on the hill. The lamp was lit, which meant it was safe to come. Ragged and weary, they waited, while Joe signaled low with a hoot like an owl. Then the door opened wide to welcome the freedom travelers. They were rushed through the house to the barn, for the farmers knew there were slave catchers near. A trap door in the floor took them under the barn to hide till it was safe to move on. Then Peg-Leg Joe went back to the river to meet others who followed the drinking gourd. With danger still near, too close for ease, the farmer sent the 5 travelers on. He drew a map that showed the way north on the midnight road to the next safe house just over 2 hills. This time James called the signal, a hoot like an owl, that opened the door to a Quaker farm. The travelers were led to a secret room hidden behind the shelves. They rested here for many days and healed their wounds. Soft beds, full meals, new clothes, hot baths washed away some fear and pain. Isaiah smiled. When they were strong, they traveled again, from house to house on the underground trail, still following the drinking gourd north. Sometimes they traveled on foot, sometimes by cart. The wagon they rode neared their journey's end, carried fruit to market and the runaways to freedom. At last they came to the shores of Lake Erie. Molly and James and Isaiah, old Hattie and young George climbed aboard the steamship that would carry them across to Canada, to freedom. 5 more souls are safe, old Hattie cried. The sun shone bright when they stepped on the land. They had followed the drinking gourd.
When the sun comes back and the first quail calls, Mama, for the old man is waiting for to carry you to freedom if you follow the dreaming boy.
This is Mrs. Rogers' 4th grade class performing Possum Come A-Knockin' by Nancy Van Lane. Possum come a-knockin' at the door, at the door. Possum come a-knockin' at the door. Let me in, he said with a grin as the possum come a-knockin' at the door. Granny was a-sittin' and a-rockin' and a-knittin' when a possum come a-knockin' at the door. Ma was busy cookin' in the kitchen making taters when a possum come a-knockin' at the door. Let me in, he said with a grin as the possum come a-knockin' at the door. Pa was busy fixin' and a-bangin' and a-poundin' when a possum come a-knockin' at the door. Pappy was a-whittlin' making play toys for the baby when a possum come a-knockin' at the door. Let me in, he said with a grin as the possum come a-knockin' at the door. Sis was tossin' babies while Pappy was a-whittlin' when a possum come a-knockin' at the door. Brother was untangling all the twiny line for fishin' while Sis was tossin' baby and Pappy was a-whittlin'. And Pa was busy fixin' and Ma was busy cookin' and Granny was a-knittin' when a possum come a-knockin' at the door. Coondog was a-twitchin' and a-scratchin' in the corner when a possum come a-knockin' at the door. Let me in, he said with a grin as the possum come a-knockin' at the door. Tomcat started sniffin' and a-spittin' and a-hissin' when a possum come a-knockin' at the door. What's that? Sis said. Don't know, Brother said. What's that? Pa said. Don't know, Granny said. But that cat, she said, that cat oughter go. Then dogs started sniffing and a pawing and a growling, while the cat tail a-twitchin' was a-hissin' and a-howlin', making Granny stop a-knittin' and Pappy stop a-whittlin' and Baby started fussin', Sis and Brother started cussin', 'cause a little old possum was a-knockin' at the door. Let me in, he said with a grin as the possum come a-knockin' at the door. What's that? Granny said. Don't know, Pappy said. What's that? Ma said. Don't know, Pa said. Then I creepy crossed the floor and peeked under the door. It's a possum come a-knockin' on the door, I said. It's a possum come a-knockin' on the door. Let me in, he said with a grin as the possum come a-knockin' at the door. Then Brother came a-leapin' and Sis came a-runnin' and Baby came a-crawlin' and Dog started howlin' and Pappy was a-chucklin' and Granny's eyes was a-twinklin' as Ma followed Pa to the door. Now hush, Pa said. Now hush, Ma said, and slowly Pa opened up the door. Now y'all stop your hollerin' and your fussin' and your cussin', 'cause there's nothing that's a-knockin' at the door. No possum? Pappy said. No possum, Pa said. No possum? Granny said. No possum, Ma said. Then we all started doing like before. Granny was a-sittin' while Pappy was a-whittlin', Ma was a-cookin' while Pa was a-fixin', Brother was untangling while Sis was tossin' Baby, Coondog was a-scratchin' while Tomcat was a-lickin', and I was just a-sittin' and a-lookin' out the winder when I saw what I saw scoot up the old oak tree. possum was a scootin' and a scramblin' and a danglin'. That possum that was knockin' made a fool out of me. Let me in, here's son with a grin, as the possum comes a knockin' at the door. This is Mr. Cicero's 5th grade class performing Grandfather Twilight by Barbara Berger. Grandfather Twilight lives among the trees. When day is done, he closes his book, combs his beard, and puts on his jacket. Next, he opens a wooden chest that is filled with an endless strand of pearls. He lifts the strand, takes one pearl from it, and closes the chest again. Then, holding the pearl in his hand, Grandfather Twilight goes for a walk. The pearl grows larger with every step. Leaves begin to whisper. Little birds hush. Gently, he gives the pearl to the silence above the sea. Then Grandfather Twilight goes home again. He gets ready for bed, and he goes to sleep. Good night. This is Mrs. Dearling's class performing How the Camel Got His Hump. Once upon a time, long, long ago, when the world was so new and all, the animals were just beginning to work for man. But Camel lived in the middle of a howling desert because he was lazy, grumpy, and did not want to work. When anyone spoke to him, he just said, humph. Monday morning horse came to him all saddled and said, Camel, come out and trot like the rest of us. But Camel just said, humph. Next morning, Dog came along with a stick in his mouth and said, Camel, come out and fetch like the rest of us. But Camel just said, humph. like the rest of us. Camel just said humph. The camel just said humph. The camel just said humph. Don't bother me, the camel just said humph. At the end of the day, man called horse, dog, and ox together and said, with the world so new and all, the three of you will have to do twice as much work because Camel will not do anything. He just says humph. The camel just said humph. The camel just said humph. Don't bother me, don't bother me, the camel just said humph. This made the three of them very angry. While they were grumbling, the genie came along. They asked him if it was right for Camel to be so lazy since the world was so new and all. Camel won't trot, said the horse. And he won't fetch, said dog. And he won't plow, said ox. What does Camel have to say about this? Asked Genie. They replied, he just says humph. The camel just said humph. The camel just said humph. Don't bother me, don't bother me, the camel just said humph. So Genie went into the howling desert to find Camel. With the world so new and all, why haven't you been doing any work? Camel just said, humph. The camel just said, humph. The camel just said, humph. Don't bother me, the camel just said, humph. You have caused the other animals to work extra because you are so lazy. I want you to work too. Camel just said, humph. The camel just said, humph. The camel just said, humph. Don't bother me, don't bother me, the camel just said, humph. I wouldn't say that again if I were you. You might say it once too often, but once again, Camel just said, humph. The camel just said, humph. As soon as he said it, he saw his back that he was so proud of begin to puff up into one great big humph. Do you see that? Said the genie. That's your very own humph you have brought upon yourself because you would not work. Now come out of this howling desert and get to work with the other animals. But how can I with this humph on my back? Moaned Camel. Since you have not worked for 3 days, you will have to work 3 days in a row without stopping. That humph you've got will store enough food and water to last. Now behave yourself and work like the rest of the animals, said the genie. So Camel went off the next morning, humph and all, and joined horse, dog, and ox as they helped man with his work. And even to this day, Camel still has his humph. We call it his hump. He is still 3 days behind in his work. He is still lazy and grumpy, and he still says humph. The camel just said humph. The camel just said humph. Don't bother me, don't bother me. The camel just said humph. This is Mrs. Penner's 5th grade class performing The Boy Who Cried Wolf. Once upon a time, there was a shepherd boy whose job was to look after the sheep for the men of the village. At first, the shepherd boy enjoyed his work. He kept the little lambs from getting lost and safe from the fierce wolf who lived in the nearby forest. The shepherd boy kept himself from getting bored by making up songs on his flute. But one day, even playing his flute wasn't enough to keep him from feeling bored and lonely. There is never anyone to talk to, just a flock of silly bleating sheep. I wish something exciting would happen. Maybe the fierce wolf will sneak out of the woods. Suddenly the shepherd boy had a great idea. In a loud voice, so all the men of the village could hear, he shouted, "Wolf! Wolf! Come quick! Wolf, wolf, come quick! Wolf, wolf, come quick!" The shepherd boy did cry. "Wolf, wolf, come quick! Wolf, wolf, come quick! Or the sheep will surely die." The men of the village came running with spears, pitchforks, and sticks. But when they reached the pasture, of course there was no fierce wolf. The shepherd boy told them that his yelling had scared off the fierce wolf. Even though some of the men doubted his story, several stayed the rest of the day just to be sure. The shepherd boy had someone to talk to, so he was happy. For the next few days, the shepherd boy enjoyed his quiet work and made up more new songs on his flute. But then boredom set in again, and before long, the men of the village again heard, "Wolf, wolf, come quick! Wolf, wolf, come quick! Wolf, wolf, come quick!" The shepherd boy did cry. "Wolf, wolf, come quick! Wolf, wolf, come quick! Or the sheep will surely die." Once again, they came running with spears, pitchforks, and sticks. And once again, when they reached the pasture, there was no fierce wolf. This time, all the men of the village were angry. "Where are the tracks of the fierce wolf?" they asked. The shepherd boy pointed to some tracks near the stream, but they were just tracks of the sheep. "You have deceived us twice," said the angry men of the village. "Don't bother to call us again because we know what you are up to." This time, no one stayed to talk with the shepherd boy. He felt bad because he was still lonely, and the men of the village were angry at him too. He promised himself that he would try harder to be a good shepherd. A few days later, the shepherd boy was playing his flute. The fierce wolf did come out of the forest and headed right for the sheep. Without wasting a second, the shepherd boy shouted, "Wolf, wolf, come quick!" Nothing happened. No one came, and the fierce wolf was creeping closer and closer to the sheep. So the shepherd boy, thinking that his cry for help had not been heard, yelled in his very loudest voice, "Wolf, wolf, come quick! Wolf, wolf, come quick! Wolf, wolf, come quick!" The shepherd boy did cry. "Wolf, wolf, come quick! Wolf, wolf, come quick! Or the sheep will surely die." The men of the village had heard the cries for help, but had said, "That shameful boy is trying to trick us again. There is no fierce wolf. Let's just keep on with our work." When no one came to help, the shepherd boy tried to beat off the intruder with his staff, but before he did, the fierce wolf killed one of the little lambs. and carried it off to the forest for his dinner. Then the shepherd boy ran down from the pasture to tell the men of the village what had happened and to find out why no one had come to help. When he heard the story, the village leader said, "You deceived us twice, and we thought you were deceiving us again. If you want help when you are in trouble, you must call only when you really need help. No one believes a liar, even when he speaks the truth." Wolf, wolf, come quick, wolf, wolf, come quick.